Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Please subscribe my channel. The morning light, a pale and hesitant gold, spilled across the polished surface of the studio desk. On the screen, a graphic for a segment on summer holiday deals glowed with artificial cheer. Presenters Alistair and Sarah maintained a practiced, easy banter, their smiles as much a part of the Good Morning Britain set as the plush sofas and the steaming mugs of tea. So, if you're thinking of a last-minute getaway, Sarah was saying, her voice a smooth, familiar cadence in millions of homes, the Balearic Islands are still showing some surprising availability. Alistair nodded, ready with a light-hearted quip. But the word availability seemed to hang in the air, swallowed by a sudden, profound silence from his earpiece. His smile faltered for a fraction of a second, a flicker of confusion that was instantly mirrored in Sarah's eyes. They were professionals, veterans of 1,000 live broadcasts, and they both felt the shift in the atmosphere of the control gallery. The usual quiet stream of direction had ceased, replaced by a void. In a small terraced house in Coventry, Eleanor was scraping butter onto toast, the television a companion in the quiet kitchen. The cheerful chatter about holidays was a background noise to her morning ritual. In a high-rise flat in London, Mark was tying his tie, glancing at the screen, half listening to the presenter's easy report. In a quiet living room in Manchester, young Chloe was curled on the sofa, waiting for the cartoon that would follow the news. Then, the change. The vibrant summer holiday graphic dissolved. Not into another colorful segment intro, but into a stark, monochrome screen. A single, solemn line of text appeared, white and severe against the black. There was no music, no transition. Just silence, heavy and deep, broken only by the faint, ambient hum of the studio lights. Alistair and Sarah were no longer looking at each other or the camera. Their heads were slightly bowed, listening to an unseen voice in their earpieces. When Alistair looked up, his face was stripped of its morning show warmth. The lines around his eyes seemed deeper, etched with a sudden, profound gravity. "We interrupt our program," he said, his voice lower, stripped of its earlier cadence. It was a voice meant for hushed rooms, not for morning television. "We are taking you now to Downing Street for a live broadcast." The screen shifted. There was no bustling street, no sunlit facade. Instead, it showed a familiar, solemn scene. A lone podium bristling with microphones, set against the black door of number 10. The air there, too, seemed still. A moment later, the Prime Minister emerged. She was dressed in a simple, dark suit, her face pale and composed, but her eyes held a weight that seemed to press through the screen. She approached the podium, adjusted the microphones with a slow, deliberate movement, and looked directly into the lens. "It is with the deepest sorrow," she began, her voice steady but soft, "that I must confirm the news we have all been dreading. Overnight, the helicopter carrying His Royal Highness, the Prince of Wales, from a diplomatic engagement in Scotland, lost contact. Despite an extensive search and rescue operation through the night, I have, within the last few minutes, received confirmation from the Ministry of Defense that wreckage has been located in a remote area of the Cairngorms. There are no survivors." The words, "no survivors," fell not like a clap of thunder, but like a stone into a deep well, the ripples spreading outwards into a nation's consciousness. In her kitchen in Coventry, Eleanor's hand stilled. The knife she was using clattered onto the counter, but she didn't hear it. She stared at the Prime Minister's face, the formal words failing to fully capture the enormity of the truth they conveyed. She thought of the prince's last public appearance, his easy smile, his work with young people. A life, so full and public, now just gone. In his London flat, Mark stopped, his tie half done. He stood frozen, watching the PM's lips form the final, devastating sentence. He wasn't a royalist, not particularly, but this was different. This was a man, a father, a figure so embedded in the fabric of the nation that his sudden absence felt like a tear in the world itself. The morning's priorities, the commute, the meeting dissolved into irrelevance. On the studio sofa, Sarah had brought a hand to her mouth, her eyes glistening. Alistair's jaw was tight, his shoulders slumped. They were the conduits for this news, and they felt its weight settle upon them. The autocue was blank. There was no script for this. The broadcast cut back to the studio. For a long moment, neither presenter spoke. The silence was eloquent, a shared, national intake of breath. The usual clock, the ticker tape of headlines at the bottom of the screen, all were gone. There was only the Stark studio and two people, as stunned as their audience. Alistair finally found his voice, a husky, broken thing. We are, of course, ending our normal programming for the day, he said. Our thoughts, and I am sure the thoughts of the entire nation, are with the royal family at this unimaginable time. Sarah nodded, unable to speak, a single tear tracing a path down her cheek. It was not a performance. It was the most genuine moment of their broadcasting careers. In her living room in Manchester, Flo watched the woman on television cry and felt a confused sadness tighten her own throat. She didn't understand the politics or the titles, but she understood loss. She understood that something important and good had been broken. Outside, the world had changed. The golden morning light now seemed accusatory, too bright for the shadow that had fallen. In the streets, the usual rush-hour noise was muted, as if the city itself was holding its breath. People stood still on pavements, looking at their phones, the same stark headline reflected in their eyes. Strangers exchanged glances, a silent, shared understanding passing between them. The bubble of the ordinary had been punctured. The television screen remained a solemn, silent gray. No adverts, no jingles, no return to the trivial. It was a void, reflecting the hollow feeling in a million hearts. The day had begun with the simple promise of sunshine and holiday deals. Now it was etched in memory forever as the morning the music stopped, the morning the world tilted on its axis, the morning a kingdom held its breath, and then, collectively, began to mourn. The breakfast tables across the land fell silent, the only sound the quiet, heartbreaking echo of a future that would now never be.